The digital clock on my bedside table glowed 2:17 a.m., a silent sentinel to the moment my carefully constructed life shattered. It wasn't a fire alarm or a sudden storm that woke me, but the insistent buzz of my phone. A message. From Mark. My heart gave a familiar flutter of annoyance. He knew I hated late-night texts, unless it was an emergency. But this wasn't an emergency. It was an execution. I'm with Sarah. We're not coming back. Sarah, my best friend. My oldest friend. The woman who knew every secret, every hope, every fear I'd ever whispered into the dark. My mind reeled, trying to process the impossible combination of those two names. Then, another message. A photo. They stood on a sun-drenched beach, palm trees swaying in the background. Sarah, wrapped in a turquoise pashmina I'd bought her for her last birthday, was laughing, her head thrown back against Mark's shoulder. Mark, usually so reserved, was grinning, a wide, uninhibited smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. They looked free, happy, and utterly, completely oblivious to the wreckage they'd left behind. A strange calm descended over me, a stillness colder than any rage. I typed 2 words. Good luck. Then, with a methodical precision that surprised even myself, I canceled every joint credit card, changed the passwords to our shared bank accounts, and set a reminder to call a locksmith first thing in the morning. The house, usually so full of Mark's presence, felt suddenly vast and empty, yet lighter, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. I slept, surprisingly, soundly. The next morning, the insistent pounding on my front door wasn't Mark, nor was it Sarah. It was the police. Officer Miller, a kind-faced woman in her late 40s, introduced herself and her younger partner, Officer Chen. Mrs. Hayes, we've received a complaint from your husband. She paused, her gaze lingering on the freshly installed deadbolt. He reports that his cards have been cancelled, and he's been locked out of the house. I invited them in, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil that churned beneath the surface. Officer, my husband informed me he was leaving me for another woman yesterday morning. He also stated he would not be returning. I handed them my phone, open to the text message. I believe I have every right to secure my property and finances. Officer Miller read the message, then looked at me with an expression that was a mixture of sympathy and professional detachment. Mrs. Hayes, your husband claims half of the assets are his, and that you've illegally frozen him out. Officer, this house, the primary bank accounts, the investment portfolio, they are all legally in my name. My grandmother helped me buy this house before I even met Mark. My father left me the investments. Mark's business has been struggling for years. I've been covering most of our expenses. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared, filled with deeds, bank statements, and a prenuptial agreement that, in my youthful naivete, I'd thought would never matter. I've merely protected what is mine. The officers exchanged a glance. Officer Chen began taking notes. And Miss Sarah Jenkins? My former best friend. She was with him in the photo he sent. I suspect she was also using a supplementary credit card linked to my account. I opened my banking app, showing them the recent charges. A luxury resort in Tulum, designer clothing from a boutique called Ocean Dreams, spa treatments. These charges appeared after Mark's message. I canceled her card as well. Officer Miller nodded slowly. It seems this is more of a civil matter now, Mrs. Hayes. We'll need to file a report, but for now, there's no criminal offense on your part for securing your own property. They left, and the house fell silent once more. But this time, the silence felt different. It was the quiet before a storm, a sense of anticipation. I knew Mark and Sarah wouldn't simply disappear. They would return, eventually, when the reality of their situation set in, and I would be ready. My first call was to Lauren, my attorney. She was sharp, no nonsense, and had a reputation for being a bulldog in the courtroom. Olivia, this is a mess, but it's not insurmountable, she said, her voice calm and reassuring. You did the right thing by securing your assets. Now, we build your case. Over the next few days, my dining room table became an impromptu war room. Lauren and I meticulously went through every financial document, every email, every text message. We uncovered a pattern of Mark siphoning funds from my personal accounts into his failing business, often without my knowledge. He'd even used my digital signature on several loan applications, forging my consent. Sarah, it turned out, hadn't just used the emergency credit card. She'd been making regular, extravagant purchases for months, disguised as household expenses. "This isn't just a divorce, Olivia," Lauren stated one afternoon, her expression grim. "This is fraud, embezzlement, and possibly identity theft." The weight of her words settled heavily in the air. The betrayal felt even deeper, more insidious, knowing it wasn't just a moment of passion, but a calculated, ongoing deception. "They're looking for something," Lauren said, pointing to a failed login attempt on my cloud storage from Tulum. "Probably your financial files, your tax records, anything they can use to claim a stake." I remembered something then. Years ago, Mark had insisted I scan my digital signature, claiming it would make business paperwork easier. "Where did he store it?" Lauren asked. I pointed to an old external hard drive in my desk drawer. Lauren connected it to my laptop. Amidst folders of photos and old tax returns, there was a folder labeled Business. Inside, dozens of PDF files, contracts, loan applications, vendor agreements. Many bore what looked like my electronic signature. I had never seen most of them. Lauren read silently for several minutes. When she finally spoke, her voice was tight. "Olivia, this isn't just unauthorized spending. This is a criminal offense. Your husband used your signature on financial documents without your knowledge. This is serious." The room suddenly felt very cold. Rain began to tap softly against the windows. I closed my eyes, taking a deep, steadying breath. When I opened them, Lauren was already organizing the evidence: fraud, unauthorized transfers, false authorizations, possible forged signatures. She looked at me with the calm confidence of someone who had faced down countless legal battles. "Starting now," she said, "you do not answer Mark's calls. You don't answer Sarah's either. If either of them comes here, you call the police. And if they apologize?" I asked, a faint, bitter smile touching my lips. "They're welcome to apologize," Lauren replied, "but they'll do it through their attorneys." She smiled for the first time that day. Good. She packed the files into her briefcase, leaving copies neatly stacked on my dining room table. Before leaving, she offered one last piece of advice. People who think they've gotten away with everything almost always make one final mistake. They come back. I watched her drive away through the rain. The house was quiet again. For the first time since receiving Mark's message, I wasn't wondering whether he'd return. I knew he would. He simply had no idea that when he did, I wouldn't be waiting with tears. I'd be waiting with evidence. Lauren's prediction took less than 48 hours to come true. Saturday afternoon was unusually warm for early spring. I was pruning the rose bushes along the front walkway when a taxi slowed to a stop in front of my house. I recognized Mark before he even stepped out. The confident swagger from the Tulum photo was gone. His shirt was wrinkled, his beard uneven, and the expensive sunglasses he'd worn on the beach were nowhere to be found. Sarah climbed out after him, carrying 2 oversized suitcases and a designer handbag I had unknowingly paid for. Even from 30 feet away, I could see the tension between them. They weren't speaking. So much for paradise. I quietly set the pruning shears on the porch and walked inside before either of them reached the front steps. 3 firm knocks echoed through the house, then Mark's voice. "Olivia." I didn't answer. Another knock. "Olivia, I know you're home." Only then did I unlock the door, keeping the security latch in place. Mark forced a smile. "There you are." I looked at him calmly. "What do you need?" His smile disappeared. "My cards aren't working." "I know. We've been trying to reach you." "I know. You changed the locks." "Yes." Sarah stepped forward, her voice tight. "You've made your point." I looked at her for the first time since the photo. "No, Sarah, I haven't." She folded her arms. "We just want to come inside and talk. You told me you were never coming back." Mark sighed dramatically. "We said a lot of things." "No," I corrected him. "You texted exactly 3 sentences." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Can we not do this outside?" "No." The silence stretched long enough for a neighbor across the street to glance toward us while collecting her mail. Mark lowered his voice. "The hotel froze our reservation." "I'm sorry to hear that. Our accounts aren't working." "I know. We've been living out of suitcases for 2 days." "I know." His patience cracked. "Olivia, stop saying you know. I know because I canceled the cards. Sarah took another step. You had no right. I couldn't help smiling. I had every right. She laughed sarcastically. Everything Mark has belongs to both of you. Actually, I tilted my head slightly. The bank disagrees. Mark's jaw tightened. We're married. We are. So half of everything is mine. I looked directly into his eyes. Then your attorney should have no trouble proving that. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Sarah finally broke the silence. We just need enough money to get back on our feet. I almost laughed. My retirement savings weren't meant to finance your honeymoon. It wasn't a honeymoon, Mark interjected. No, you don't understand. I understand exactly what you told me. I reached into the entryway cabinet and removed a large manila envelope Lauren had prepared the previous evening. What is that? Mark asked. I slid it through the narrow opening in the door. This, I said, is a copy of the divorce petition. It also contains documentation of the unauthorized transfers from my accounts, the fraudulent loan applications, and the extensive charges Sarah made on my credit card. Their faces went pale. Mark snatched the envelope, his hands trembling slightly. Sarah's eyes darted from the envelope to my face, a flicker of fear replacing her anger. You can discuss the details with my attorney, Lauren Davies, I continued, my voice unwavering. Her contact information is inside. I suggest you both retain legal counsel immediately. You wouldn't, Mark stammered, looking genuinely shocked. Oh, I would, I confirmed. And I have. Sarah finally found her voice, a desperate whisper. Olivia, please, we can explain. There's nothing left to explain, Sarah. You made your choices, now you get to live with the consequences. I watched as they stood there, defeated, the tropical glow of Tulum replaced by the harsh reality of my suburban porch. The taxi driver, who had been patiently waiting, honked his horn. Mark and Sarah exchanged a tense look, then slowly turned and walked back to the cab, their shoulders slumped. The suitcases, once symbols of escape, now looked like burdens. As the taxi pulled away, I closed the door, the click of the new lock a satisfying finality. The house was truly mine now, not just on paper but in spirit. The quiet was no longer heavy with unspoken resentment, but light with the promise of a new beginning. The divorce proceedings were long and arduous, but with Lauren's relentless work and the overwhelming evidence we'd compiled, the outcome was clear. Mark was ordered to repay every penny he'd taken, plus a substantial settlement for emotional distress. Sarah faced her own legal battles, not just from me, but from other creditors whose accounts she'd apparently exploited. Months later, I sat across from Mark in a sterile conference room, the final divorce papers spread between us. He looked haggard, a shadow of the man who had once charmed me. I never meant to hurt you, Olivia, he mumbled, his voice hoarse. I got desperate. The business, the pressure. Some people destroy their lives one small justification at a time, I said, remembering Lauren's words, and only recognize themselves when the damage is too large to hide. He looked up, his eyes red. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I thought about the Cancun message, Sarah's pashmina, the bank transfers, the forged signatures, the police on my porch, the courtroom. Then I thought about the quiet house waiting for me, with sunlight falling through new curtains I had chosen myself. I already stopped letting you live inside my head, I said. That's all I can offer. I didn't stay to watch the tears come. Outside, the afternoon was warm and bright. Lauren walked me to my car, a silent companion. Just before I opened the door, she handed me the final signed copy of the decree. You're free, she said. I looked at the papers, then at the courthouse steps, then at the vast, open sky. No, I said softly. I'm safe. That summer, I learned how many ordinary things can feel extraordinary when no one is taking pieces of you in secret. I bought peaches at the farmer's market without checking whether Mark had made another unexplained withdrawal. I slept through the night without waking to review bank alerts. I invited my sister, Clara, over for dinner, and cooked salmon the way Mark had always claimed he hated. We ate it on the patio, with cheap white wine, and bare feet propped on the opposite chair. You seem different, Clara said. I am different. Better. I watched a robin hop along the fence. More honest. That was the truest answer I had. I joined a weekend financial literacy program for women rebuilding after divorce. At first, I volunteered only because Lauren suggested it might help someone. Then one Saturday morning, a woman about my age stayed after class with a folder clutched to her chest. "My husband handles everything," she whispered. I knew that whisper. I knew the shame inside it. I pulled out a chair and sat with her for nearly an hour. We didn't fix her whole life that day, but we opened her first bank statement together. Sometimes freedom begins with a password only you know. In August, an envelope arrived from the court confirming Mark's first repayment had been processed. The amount was smaller than what he owed, but it was real. I placed the check on my desk and stared at it for a long time. Then I deposited it into a new account labeled Garden Fund. By September, the backyard had changed completely. Raised beds, lavender, tomatoes, a small stone path leading to a wooden bench beneath the maple tree. I hired a local carpenter to build the bench, and when he asked what inscription I wanted carved into the back, I thought for several days. In the end, I chose 5 words. She chose herself and stayed. The first time I sat there alone, I cried. Not loudly, not painfully, just enough to honor the woman who had answered a cruel message with 2 calm words, and then saved her own life, one decision at a time. Late one evening, as the air cooled and the first leaves began to turn, my phone vibrated on the patio table. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I opened the message. It was Mark. "Can we talk?" No apology, no explanation, just another request. Another door he expected me to open because I had opened so many before. I stared at the screen. For a long moment, I remembered being 22 and believing love meant never giving up. Then I thought about being 45 and understanding something far more important. Love without respect becomes a debt you pay forever. I deleted the message. Then I blocked the number. The sky above my backyard had softened into deep blue. Somewhere nearby, wind moved through the maple leaves. My house glowed behind me, warm and steady. Every lock changed, every room reclaimed. Mark had thought he was leaving me with nothing. He never understood that what he took with him was the life I no longer wanted, and what he left behind was mine, my home, my money, my peace, my name. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.